Hey guys, it's Kevin with LEATHERx. If you bought one of our kits, I'd like to take this moment to thank you. If you haven't or you're thinking of buying one, make sure to check our website out, LEATHERxKits.com. So let me show you around this E39 M5 seat. As you can tell, it's heavily worn, discolored. You can see how the headrest doesn't match with the rest of the seat. It's been painted before. The leather's cracked. It's got that rip. It's just ugly, filthy. You'll also notice how the color fluctuates in between the video. iPhone cameras tend to do that with these colors. Now we're going to restore this and it's going to look like night and day. So besides our kit, you're going to need some isopropyl alcohol. You might want to use a heat gun and some masking tape. Now let's open this up. The star of the kit is our water-based color coating. This aerosol can. We also got the top coat, seals everything in. We got our cleaner, our scour pad and brush, these disposable bamboo fiber towels, palette knife, which is used with your leather filler. Now, unlike most other kits that use white fillers, we like to add some color to it. It's easier to blend in, just makes the job quicker, less of a hassle when coating it. Alright, so next is a mask, some gloves. Next is the color coating inside the bottle. Same exact stuff inside the can. It's applied via applicator sponges. You want to put 2 to 3 coats before applying the spray. So we got the grip adhesion promoter. Now the sponge towel you want to use to wipe the seats with isopropyl alcohol before applying grip. Now the isopropyl alcohol won't be included in the kit. We wouldn't be able to ship those out if that was the case. Got some masking paper to avoid overspray, especially if you're working inside the vehicle. Now the tape and the heat gun can't include those, but I will say they're not necessary. Tape will definitely help you out. The heat gun will speed up the process if you're working outside the vehicle. If you're working inside, you can use the heater. Now, I almost forgot to mention the sandpaper. So for sandpaper, we have 220, 500, and 1000 grit. Now the 220 is for these heavily cracked areas. The 500 is for the medium range. And 1000 is for the smoother, less damaged areas. Now if you do 220, you follow it with 500. If you do 500, you follow it with 1000. And you'll get the best results. So let's start off by cleaning the seat. Got the brush. Get deep in the creases, in the seams, and the scour pad, and just scrub, spray, repeat. We got the bamboo fiber towels. Like I said, they're disposable, 100% biodegradable. Cleaning these seats, you'll see a pretty big difference. These, on the other hand, you might not see too much of a difference because of the paint that was used on it. I'm just gonna clean as much as I can and see what we do. Now cleaning, it didn't do much. It changed a little bit, but not too much. So I'm just gonna step it up a bit with isopropyl alcohol. Usually the isopropyl alcohol, we leave it for areas that are gonna be repaired and for the final wipe before applying grip. But in this case, we're gonna have to clean most of the seat with alcohol and remove all this old paint, which is not coming off with the cleaner. Now you can see how it's removing the old paint. Now, if your seats were painted before and alcohol isn't doing much, if you notice this is 91%, if that doesn't do the trick, you might want to bump it up a bit with a 50-50 mix, alcohol and acetone. Now, if that doesn't do the trick, just be careful if you're going to use 100% acetone. Don't want to damage the leather either, but usually with solvent-based paints, you might have to use something stronger. Now this is cleaning up fairly well. You could see how drastically the color faded. Now here I'm using already about half of the bamboo fiber towels. If you have to do something like this isn't typical, but if you have to do something like this, I would just recommend getting some extra terry towels. We're going to clean the leather one more time. And then a final wipe with alcohol. Now let's take a look at the leather. You'll see how the cracks, they pop out more. When leather's wet, it gets a little darker. So you want to be careful with the filler and the sandpaper when it comes to the seams. The stitching, you don't want to get any filler on the thread. You don't want to sand the thread. It's going to get all worn. We got that hole that it's going to be patched up with the filler. It's just small enough where it won't be a problem. If it were any bigger, we might need a different type of repair. On the website, when you're ready to check out, you'll see that there's an option to select if you have a rip, a tear, or if a seam is busted. We can include some thread and a needle. Or if you have a rip, we'll include an additional repair kit that'll help you out with that. Now, there's a limit to the size of the rip or tear. Typically, I don't like to do repairs bigger than 2 inches. If you want to go ahead and try, you're more than welcome, but I want you to keep in mind that if your leather is ripped and it's more than 2 inches, you should just get that section reupholstered. And then you can restore the rest of the seat with a kit. Now you got to be careful when you're sanding. So right now, sanding with 200 grit, I'm getting the deep cracks. This area right here was kind of scaly. It had some scratches, some deep scratches too. So you want to take care of that with 200. But don't forget to follow it up with 500 and then with 1000. That way you'll get nice smooth leather. Yeah, you see the area I was talking about that's kind of scaly? So again, 200. You want to fold the sandpaper. Be in control of it. Again, you want to be careful when you're sanding. You don't want to scuff up the thread. It'll make it look ugly, the stitching. Most seats don't have this much stitching in the middle. But nonetheless, you want to be careful. Now again, I'm using 220 for the deeper scratches, deeper cracks, leather that just feels rough on your hands. dust that sanded leather off. Hit it with 500 afterwards. You also want to hit the other areas that aren't as bad, but are still, still need some work. Now I saved 1,000 for the smoother areas and for the areas that you hit with the 500 grit. You want to be patient. You don't want to speed this. Prepping is the most important step to get the best results. Alright, so you want to clean up all the sanded off leather, all that dust. You want to wipe that away. Alright, so now it's time to use the filler. Now, you want to be careful how much filler you apply at a time. You want to do nice thin layers. You don't want to put too much pressure. See, if you put too much pressure, you won't put almost anything down. Nice thin layers, light pressure, just grazing the surface. Just constantly do that. You want to be careful when you're working around the seams, around the stitching. You want to be careful not to apply any filler on the stitching. They'll just make the repair look ugly. Just be careful. Take your time, especially on the edges. Now, when you're applying filler on a hole or a rip, you don't want to fill it all at once. You want to layer it up. Do it 3 or 4 times if you need to, but just put small amounts in there and just layer it up. Let it dry. This air dries pretty quick. Here it's like 60 degrees and it's drying in about 5 minutes. It's sandable in about 5 minutes. For it to fully dry, maybe it'll take 10 minutes. With a heat gun, it will be faster. So I'm going to speed up the process. So you keep your distance. You want to stretch out your pinky and your thumb, do a shaka, and that's about the distance, a safe distance to keep your heat gun. So now that it's dry, sanding it with 500 grit, getting these areas that might have been just a little bit too much, just the high spots. You want to sand those down. So I decided to prop up the heat gun, put it at a low temperature, let that dry. I can sand the rest. So again, be careful with the thread. Take your time and check on the repair. Just keep on layering that up until the hole is fully, filled. So again, let that dry. After a while, after everything's dry, you want to do another wipe. Now you notice that the alcohol, it thins the filler up a bit. It helps eliminate the excess filler. It's a good little trick. Just want to be careful not to rub it too much, or else you'll just remove all the filler. So that hole filled up pretty nicely. That area is going to look really smooth. Now there was an indentation right here. Just using the heat gun to shrink the stretched out leather a little bit, make it less noticeable. Now it's time for a final wipe. Again, you want to be careful, especially the areas with the filler. Now we can apply the grip, the adhesion promoter. This stuff will make the coating stick. Want to be careful again with the stitching, the seams. You don't want to get too much in there, or else again it will make the repair ugly. Just mask that off. No, typically that dries up in 5 minutes, maybe 10. If you're in a cold area, you might want to use a heat gun. Now, when applying the color coat with the sponge applicator, just want to put a little bit at a time. And again, same thing goes for this. You want to be careful with the seams, with the stitching. You don't want to get those holes filled up. Just apply a little bit at a time. Thin layers. 2 to 3 layers should be enough. Again, it's going to be nice and even once you spray on the color coating with the aerosol can. This just helps prolong how much surface area can be covered with the aerosol can. So, speed it up with the heat gun. Now it's time to spray the color coating. Now, I'll slow down on the technique. It's fairly easy. You know, you'll see little drops. Show you here in a bit. There's some bigger drops that'll occasionally shoot out. You want to touch those up. It's nothing to worry about. You do, again, thin layers. Take your time. Dry in between the layers. If you want the best results, you just have to take your time. I used a piece of cardboard to avoid any additional overspray. Now, I'd like to take this moment to answer some of the FAQs that I get. So one of them is this a dye? No, not really. It's a polyurethane water-based coating. That being said, most in the industry do refer to this as a dye, even though real dye works differently. But I try to use coating. I mean, I've said dye in the past before, but I try to use coating more. Another question I get is, will this get on my clothes, or how long will this last? Well, it won't get on your clothes because it's sealed with a top coat. That's like a clear coat. Now, as far as how long it will last, that depends on how you take care of it. I've seen this coating last longer than 5 years. You know, it'll eventually just wear off, just like the original coating. But if you want to know more about this, go to our website and go on the FAQ page, and you'll see a longer explanation along with other answered questions. So visit LEATHERxKits.com/FAQ. So my phone died, but here you go. You can see a big difference from when we first started. There's the big drops. You just gotta touch those up. You don't have to worry too much. You'll see how it just patting them a little bit lightly, and then they'll dry up nice and even. Again, when you're drying, you don't want to get too close thinking that they'll speed up everything, because then you might burn the color. You know, you want to keep on... Notice how I move my heat gun around constantly. You know, you want to do that. You don't want to leave the heat gun in one area for too long. You can if, you know, you put it at a low temperature. But for the most part, you know, when you're drying, you just want to move the heat gun or the blow dryer around. Make sure everything dries nice and even. If you're doing this in the summer, you know, you might not even need a heat gun. I'm just checking. You see how that repair held up pretty well. So now it's time for the top coat. The top coat is just basically a clear coat. It seals everything in. Again, you might get a couple little bigger drops here and there. Nothing too major to worry about. Now, for the top coat, you want to apply 2 to 3 coats max. If you apply too many coats, it will start getting this hazy look. For the color coat, you know, you apply as many coats as you feel it's needed. You know, 2 to 3 minimum. You know, if you can still see some discoloration, if you can still see some of the filler coming through, you know, don't be scared to use a little bit more. There's plenty in there for both seats. Don't forget to use the bottled color coating. That's what it's for, to expand the area that the can cover. You know, as you saw, this is pretty straightforward. You know, all you got to do is clean properly, prep properly, you know, be patient, take your time. You'll get the best results. I mean, you saw how these seats looked before. I'll show you here in a bit how they used to look. And a lot of people will see the before and after pictures and might think these pictures are photoshopped or you know, it's not real, or it's a different seat or whatever. You know, I've been doing this for 10 years, for over 10 years now, and I've heard it all, and I've seen it all. Now, I guarantee these kits are like nothing else on the market. You'll have the best finish of any other kit. I've seen all sorts of kits when I was putting this together. You know, there's aerosol cans with solvent-based paint. That'll actually damage the leather in the long run and crack it. And then there are the other kits, water-based kits, that you can brush on, which will leave the marks, the streak marks, and those that require using a spray gun. And those, you know, you need more skills than using an aerosol can. Well, it got dark on me, but take a look how the seats looked before and look at how they look now. It's like a night and day difference. I hope you enjoyed watching. You know, this is my first video, and I hope there's more to come, you know, with my other kits. I have the color change kits coming soon. I also have the HVLP spray gun kits coming soon. And I have other ideas that I want to experiment with. Well guys, thanks for watching, and like and subscribe, share this. Make sure to visit our website and order your kit today.